It's called the Rethink Waste Plan. Its goal is to make Flagstaff waste-free by 2050. And we spoke with a couple folks who are already doing their part to put this plan in motion. By one estimate, more than 100 teaching students and others gathered here in the First Amendment Plaza this morning in front of the NAU Communications building. Are you feeling the love today? Whether you love it or hate it, today is Valentine's Day, and some businesses in Flagstaff are definitely feeling the love, or at least cashing in on the lover's holiday. I stopped downtown earlier today to see if I could catch some last-minute shoppers in the act. Well, we definitely got some snow today, looking at this big storm system that's still making its way through the state. It was coming down quite a bit earlier, but it seems to have tapered off heading into this evening. Is the moisture going to stick around, or are we going to see warmer temperatures in the next few days? Meteorologist Lee Bourne will have more on that later. High school sports are quickly coming to an end here in Flagstaff. We begin with NAZ Today's Michaela Clark, who tells us how things got to this point. Michaela? Flagstaff may get up to a foot of snow by the end of the weekend, and it's important to be prepared for what's to come. But that goes beyond winter storms. It's a year-round job. Thank you for that, Tamara. Well, speaking of fires, the prescribed burns taking place on Observatory Mesa are finished. It's one thing to watch a violent shooting unfold through news reports, but it's a completely different thing to live through the trauma of a mass shooting. Well, it was another great turnout at this year's Festival of Science. I went to Lake Mary today and found schools of people fishing on a weekday after hearing about the big catch. Rarely do events in Flagstaff make national news, but that's what happened in this case. Today's event was at the Orpheum Theater, where students were shown a movie featuring real-life engineers in the hope of inspiring kids to develop an interest in STEM subjects. Today, the Chamber of Commerce met with several local business owners to discuss the amendment or possible repeal of Prop 414. But Flagstaff City Council plans to hold another meeting on Tuesday, March 21st, for a second reading of the proposed amendment, as well as another vote. We sat down with one NAU researcher who is trying to find out what it is that makes these constantly changing parasites tick. While cattle across the U.S. have been safe for years, many south of the border are still affected by ticks that carry the parasite that causes cattle fever. Researcher Joseph Bush is studying these ticks with a grant from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. He says the first step in the tricky process of eliminating the ticks is to learn how they adapt.
These ticks are able to switch to other hosts, and that's an important reason why it's hard to eradicate them. And so we are trying to find new DNA mutations that are responsible for resistance to the chemicals.
Cattle fever is a lot like malaria. If an animal is exposed to cattle fever at a young age, it tends to survive and becomes immune. Bush says the big risk is to adult cattle that haven't been exposed to the virus.
So when adults are exposed and infected with the parasite, that's when mortality is really high.
Bush says he isn't working alone in this fight. He has contacts around the world who may be able to send DNA samples of the parasites from their countries. And from there, the lab work can continue.
So they will test on resistant ticks and test on susceptible ticks. And maybe we'll see some differences in the way genes are expressed.
The study will take about 3 years, after which Bush and his team will submit their findings to the USDA. And hopefully this could lead to a vaccine to stop the spread of cattle fever. The Flagstaff Star Party is known for being a feel-good but still informative event, and this year was no exception. With beverages to sip, astronomy talks to listen to, and telescopes to check out, Flagstaff's Dark Skies Coalition says it's an occasion fit for the first ever Dark Sky City.
It's a very Flagstaff experience because people come out in the dark and they're bumping into each other and they're the telescopes, and everybody's kind of very cooperative with one another.
Folks young and old showed up to the party. Some were newcomers who traveled out to Flagstaff just for the event, with telescopes they had built themselves.
It took me a couple of months to grind and polish it to the proper shape, and then probably another month or two to finish the scope. If you want to see really faint objects, you need to grab as much light as you can. So the larger the mirror or the lens, the easier that is to do.
And others were loyal stargazers who have been attending the event for years.
This is actually my 4th year of going to this. I enjoy every time, and it never gets old.
But at the end of the day, it's the responses to astronomical wonders that the coalition hopes for.
So when people react to that with their oohs and ahs, that's wonderful. That means we've touched somebody, or we've helped somebody touch the night sky and stars.
There is a way to give and wrap gifts that is cheap easy, and more environmentally friendly than you'd think. In keeping with Flagstaff's eventual goal of zero waste, Willow Bend Environmental Education Center is hosting an event Saturday to show people how to make anything from gifts to ornaments, using everyday stuff that might otherwise end up in the trash.
Activities that we have, it's using all recycled materials from old CDs that we make into ornaments, the bottle cap snowman, which was collected from all the bars around Flagstaff and spray painted white.
And for those needing ideas for what kind of sustainable wrapping paper to use, Willow Bend has suggestions.
Use a bandana, and then they also have that as a present, or use newspaper or magazines or your last year's calendar. We even have a little section where you can learn how to make a magazine bow. We also will just have lots of displays of alternative gift wrapping.
In addition to benefiting the environment, Willow Bend says the event is known for drawing in a diverse crowd who all want the same thing, to have a good time while creating.
So we get, a 3-year-old to a 60-year-old, and they have fun making stuff just like the kids.
The event will be held this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Willow Bend Environmental Education Center. It is free and open to the public, and for more information, you can visit the website on your screen.